For a long time, I was bad at TF2. Throughout my time with the game, I've had a lot of sudden revelations that have changed the way I perceive the game. I might be going through some of them in a future video, but the one I want to talk about today is the Soldier. For the longest time, I didn't understand this class, and if you're somewhat new to the game, then perhaps you don't either. Today I'll be discussing the Soldier, and mentioning how to play him effectively. To really discuss the Soldier as a class, we have to examine what a class is in Team Fortress. Unlike games like Battlefield, the TF2 classes really don't share any common abilities outside of controls and movement. It's hard to imagine a version of TF2 where every class has an automatic rifle, and the only difference between the classes is one unique weapon. No matter which class you pick, compared to the other classes, you're always going to be missing some kind of abstract ability. This is very similar to another popular class-based shooter, Overwatch. Each hero in Overwatch has their own unique abilities that differentiate themselves from each other. One of the main differences between TF2 and Overwatch, though, is that TF2 has a Soldier class. Overwatch's class selection gameplay boils down to a complicated version of rock, paper, scissors. If you want to beat Hero X, you switch to Hero Y or Z. Logically, in a game where everyone is decent at every hero and is willing to switch to another one, people will keep countering the opposing team's composition until at least one hero on each team has a favorable matchup against each hero on the opposing team. This is present in TF2 as well. For example, if you want to beat a Scout, you might switch to Engineer, because Scout has a hard time dealing with sentry guns. Every class in this game is weak to some other class, except the Soldier. Soldier is the jack of all trades as far as TF2 is concerned. For every power a class can have in this game, the Soldier isn't the best at it, but he's still capable of doing it. He has favorable 1v1 matchups across the board, losing only to Scout and only then when both players are very skilled. He isn't the best at destroying large sentry nests, but he's most people's second pick besides Demo Man. Other abilities like these would be his ability to tank damage, his viability as a medic's pocket and Uber target, his ability to fight large groups of enemies on defense, his ability to attack into large groups of enemies, his effectiveness in team fights, his effectiveness when alone, his overall mobility, etc., etc. He is also the only class with access to both explosive and hit-scan damage, combining the splash damage of explosives with the reliability of hit-scan weapons. As you can see, there really isn't an area where the Soldier lacks. This all brings me to the one area where the Soldier is actually the best at something: close-range combat. I think the only classes someone might bring up regarding this are Pyro, Scout, and Heavy, but all of these classes struggle in one way or another. Pyro has no real way to close the distance on aware targets and no effectiveness in medium range, meaning players can simply retreat and grab health. Heavy also has no real way to close the distance, but he is even worse at chasing players than the Pyro is. The Scout deals as much damage as the Soldier in close range, but his weapons are significantly more difficult to use, and he is also putting himself at a huge risk with his really tiny health pool. All this should show you how powerful the Soldier is as a class. When playing against a Soldier, class selection is rarely an issue, but rather the skill of the individual players will decide the outcome of a fight. While an opponent might switch to a class that they are better at to help deal with the Soldier, the class's abilities aren't helping get the job done, but rather the player's individual skill with that class is simply better. This brings me to the other point I want to make with this video. Soldier is the easiest class in this game. His rockets are extremely easy to use and do tons of damage. Rocket jumping is not difficult at all when someone tells you to crouch. While the class definitely has a high skill ceiling due to C-tapping and air shots, the basics of the class are extremely easy to understand given a few hours. Let me clarify though, when I say the Soldier is the easiest class, I don't mean he's the easiest to play, but rather he's the easiest to do well with. It's easier to hold WM1 as Pyro or crouch behind a level 3 sentry as an Engineer than it is to play Soldier, but it's a lot harder to top score using those same tactics if the server has any decent players on it. Once you have the mechanical skills of aiming rockets and rocket jumping down, the only thing stopping a Soldier player from pub stomping is theory. To prove this point, I'm going to give out my brief Soldier primer, and if you can aim rockets and rocket jump but are bad at Soldier, it will single-handedly make you a decent Soldier player. Tip number 1. Aim your rockets at the feet of your enemies. If you don't have an easy way to do that because you're both on a level floor, then jump so that the shot becomes easier. You should be doing at least 60 damage with each rocket you land on an enemy if you intend to kill that enemy before you have to reload. Otherwise, you're too far away and you're not going to do enough damage. Tip number 2. Always get the high ground on your opponents. You can rocket jump to it if you don't already have it, or if you can't get height advantage, just retreat to a place where you can. Tip number 3. Do not fire the last rocket in your clip while fighting enemies. This is so that if the situation you are in suddenly escalates and you find yourself surrounded by enemies or you take a random crit and have very little health, you will always have one rocket to either rocket jump away with or push your enemies away so that you can get more time to reload rockets and fight them. That's literally all it takes to play Soldier, at least as far as I can remember. I hope I didn't forget anything. Hope you enjoyed my video. Feel free to tell me your thoughts and give me feedback on my videos, and see you next time.